Salawat ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad. We're now going to start the program with the recitation of Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات يهديهم ربهم بإيمانهم تجري من تحتهم الأنهار في جنات النعيم دعواهم فيها سبحانك اللهم وتحيتهم فيها سلام وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. ولو يعجل الله للناس الشر استعجالهم بالخير لقضي إليهم أجلهم فنذر الذين لا يرجون لقاءنا في طغيانهم يعمهون. وإذا مس الإنسان الضر دعانا لجنبه أو قاعدا أو قائما فلما كشفنا عنه ضره مر كأن لم يدعنا إلى ضر مسه كذلك زين للمسرفين ما كانوا يعملون. ولقد أهلكنا القرون من قبلكم لما ظلموا وجاءتهم رسلهم بالبينات وما كانوا ليؤمنوا كذلك نجزي القوم المجرمين. ثم جعلناكم خلائف في الأرض من بعدهم لننظر كيف تعملون. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Today we're very fortunate to have Prof Iqbal Asaria, who will be speaking to us on the main contributors of climate change and their responsibilities. Let's welcome him with salawat ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إني وجهت وجهي للذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا وما أنا من المشركين. Assalamu alaikum, sisters and brothers. Sorry, I haven't been able to prepare the slides before because I only was informed about this obligation in Jummah prayers. So it's been 3 or 4 hours. But Alhamdulillah, we have a few things to say and we can always say them. The thing I want to discuss today is quite important because, as you know, about 10 days ago, I think now, our Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, made a speech at the American Enterprise Institute, which is a right-wing extremist think tank in America. So you can see where she's talking, right? She's talking to people who are in that way. Amongst other things, which we will take on later, which we not this time, the one thing she mentioned is that there is an existential threat to the West from immigration. And she said, my estimate is that 800 million people want to come to Europe and America. And so these people are going to drown us. So we have to stop them. Don't forget the law and everything else, whatever means we have to stop them. So if, for example, boats are coming, you push them back or whatever else you can do. Things like that. So it was just scaremongering. The question which we have to ask them is that why are these people wanting to come here? Why do you want to leave your home and come here with all these difficulties and dangers and, drownings and killings and God knows what? You can identify a number of causes for this number of people coming. Clearly, if there are wars in your country and you are on the wrong side, then maybe you become a refugee and you want to come. Even in that, if you see who has been creating wars. So I have a different way of looking at this. Who are the biggest exporters of arms in the world? United States, United Kingdom, Europe, Israel, Russia, China. These are the big exporters of arms. So if you are exporters of arms, what is your interest? How do you increase the demand for arms? You create wars. You give to one party, so the other party needs it, and then both parties fight, and then you sell more. So, for example, one of the things in the Russian invasion of Ukraine and so on, all the arms companies are laughing because they have been asked to provide as many arms as possible. Now, nearly only since yesterday, I think, they are saying we've run out of arms altogether in the West. So say manufacture more. And so each country, now, we are talking about cutbacks everywhere, but when it comes to defense, we are putting 2 billion here, 3 billion there, whatever. No questions. America, until this, Republicans stopped giving just money to Ukraine about a week ago, and so on. But the question is, simple economics, if you want to increase the demand of arms, you increase wars. And that's what you do. So, of course, wars have got very little to do with climate change, but even the refugees from wars are our problem. Those countries are not exporting arms. As far as climate change is concerned, carbon emissions, who emits the most carbon? Anybody? Yes? And? Country-wise. China is not so big yet. So, looking globally, 80% of the carbon emissions are from the West. Now, carbon emissions obviously then cause climate change in the climate, change in the rainfall patterns, seasons, crops, droughts, all those. And because of that, you get people who lose their livelihoods. So if you go to West Africa, for example, from Senegal to the Sudan, which the southern part are countries and the northern part is the Sahara, desert. climate change leads to more and more deforestation of those parts. When your area is deforested, you go to somebody else's area to get your livelihood, right? And you start fighting. So a lot of the fighting in West Africa is because of deforestation. Or if you look at the floods in Pakistan, for example, about 3-4 months ago, there is no responsibility of Pakistani people in those floods. It was all caused by climate change and the melting of the glaciers or rainfalls, which were higher than before, and so it flooded the whole place. 30 million people were flooded, 3 million homes lost, so on, without any responsibility from their side. So if somebody else is coming to create, either your livelihood is gone, or your area is flooded, or your crops are failing because of the rainfall patterns, clearly you become a refugee. And then you go to where you should go, wherever you can find all these difficulties. I mean, let us not assume there's somebody coming from Afghanistan or Sudan or Nigeria, across the deserts, across the seas. It's a simple thing. It's a very risky business, and so many of them will be, injured, dead. So much money, so many crooks, and all kinds of people are involved in this business. The question to the Home Secretary is, if we created the problem for them, are we not responsible to solve it? Instead of saying that, these people are coming to our country to do this and do that, and you created the problem. So 80% of the carbon emissions are from us. Even India, China, which are new, they are also in the 20% bracket. Although, of course, there is a lot of coal burning in India and China, but China especially is getting quite a lot of solar power, so it's beginning to change. But here, with the excuse of Ukraine now, we started saying, okay, let's produce oil again, burn it, gas, whatever, forget renewables, because we need to survive. And that creates another layer of carbon increase and climate change. So the response of the West is twofold. First, like our dear Home Secretary, brave man, nothing to do with us, we don't want them, finished. And she says, this is an existential threat to us. If all this 800 million comes suddenly, what are we going to do with them? The other response from the far right, particularly in the United States, and obviously in other countries in Europe as well, that the whole idea of climate change is a hoax. It doesn't exist. This is all nonsense. In America, you saw in Alaska, in other places, so many things which they have never seen. But still say, no, this is just a hoax. The scientists are stupid. They have no argument for climate change. In Germany, in Hungary, or many other places, you have this kind of thinking. And it's difficult to convince them because they are completely brainwashed on this. So obviously, if you're not convinced it's your job, you're not going to take responsibility for what to do about it, right? And then you go to, like our Home Secretary, scaremongering that these people will come. So it creates xenophobia, Islamophobia, all kinds of things in the people that, these people, you see, they're coming, they're taking over, this is a threat to us, you should stop them. very soon they'll come to the idea that we should kill them, really. Because if there is no way to stop, what shall we do? Bomb them? Or get other people to bomb them? Or whatever. So this is the emerging discourse, which is a very dangerous discourse for the existence of a lot of people in the world. And you see that some of the countries which we would expect to be more sympathetic are behaving even worse. Look at Tunisia. Tunisians are behaving with the other African refugees in a terrible way. They're just throwing them out, they're just abusing them, they're just, putting them without any food, water, anything. It's really terrible. Libya, same. And so on. So instead of welcoming them or at least accommodating them, no, out. A few countries have obviously done quite a lot. Turkey, for example, has accommodated huge numbers of refugees from Syria, from all kinds of places, Iraq, and so on. Syria itself before accommodated a lot. Lebanon has accommodated millions of Palestinians who have been thrown out by Israel in that side. But eventually they will want to go to a better place. I mean, if you have been to a refugee camp in Lebanon, see that if they didn't have the hope of going back to Palestine, they would want to come somewhere else. They wouldn't want to stay there. In complete like that. Syria, the same. And one lady, Germany, Angela Merkel, who was the Chancellor of Germany for 10 years, 3, 4, I think 2 years she has left now. She admitted 1 million Syrians, refugees. And her whole party was gone. She said, we need them. It's not something that they need us. We need them. We need people to do these jobs. Admitted them, and they are doing very well. They are helping very well. But in terms of politics, this kind of talking which is going on by the right wing and the extremists is poisoning the atmosphere. So the climate change is linked to that because I think nowadays probably more than 60%, 70% of the cause of migration is climate change, directly or indirectly. And the rest is worse. The kind of things which they talk about is that they said, I had a very close friend, the late Khurshid Drawu from Kashmir. He was an immigration appeals lawyer dealing with asylum applications and things. So I said, Khurshid bhai, he said, this is the most difficult job you can imagine. I said, what? He said, look, a Muslim, say Iranian, comes and says, because I have become Christian, I think I'll be killed if I go back home. So he said, how do you know this man has become Christian or he wants asylum? Today, these people come and say, because I am gay, I think I will be killed. How do you know? But all those things they're there, but the numbers are small compared to the bulk, which are refugees from war, from actually change in the climate, and then resource constraints and so on. Those are the big ones. These are the small ones. We are just paying attention to the small ones, few thousand here and there. You're not looking at millions. What is the other way to stop them coming is to see if we can help them with a better life in their own countries. If we can give resources. So what is our dear government done on that? We had agreed that during the last Labour government, and then continued, that we would give 0.7% of our GDP in overseas aid. 0.7% of GDP last year would have been $15 billion, 15 billion pounds. So to help them to stay where they are, to make their life better there, so they don't come everywhere. So these guys, Brevman and company and all came, and they said, oh, we cannot afford this. So, because 0.7 is not an arbitrary figure. It comes from studies during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that if every rich country gives 0.7% of their GDP in aid, a lot of the poverty can be addressed easily. When you address poverty, obviously people don't want to leave their home and come here if they are comfortable at home, as we know. So these guys, they said, no, we are very tight and so on. So first of all, they cut it. They cut it from 13 billion to 5 billion 2 years ago and last year. Removed the whole department for overseas development, DFID, international development, put it into the Foreign Office. So it became a political subject. Now, look at the tricks they play. You have the 5 billion, 6 billion, but they start to using for housing the Ukrainians here. And some for the hotels and things for those boat people. Nothing is going now overseas to home countries. Very, very little. The whole thing has been completely smashed. 13 billion, 30 to 15 billion is gone. I don't think it will ever come back, given the kind of rhetoric they have and the mindset of the people building up. So climate change will worsen, because you don't have money to build renewables, to build all kinds of things which people could help you with. When they come to the conference, like the COP 26, 27, and now 28 in Abu Dhabi in November, they say we need $1 trillion a year for the next 30 years to address this problem. Who is going to give that? From where? You see now how the whole understanding of the issue is shaping up in a very, very toxic way. And the blame is being put on the people who are the victims, not the perpetrators of the thing. To add insult to injury, when somebody like Sadiq Khan puts a ULEZ, they start shouting and try to stop, of course, carbon emissions. Now they say we have to postpone the carbon targets. We have to postpone this, we have to postpone that. We have to postpone the date by which all vehicles should be non-diesel or non-petrol, new ones. 10 years. So down, in English there is a very, very interesting phrase. It is called throwing the thing into the long grass. Throwing the long grass, nobody sees it and nobody remembers it, and it's forgotten. So this whole agenda is being thrown into the long grass. Now we have authorized a huge gas field. Rishi Sunak was very proud to announce that during the conference, that this will make us self-sufficient and all kinds of crap there. So we have the whole idea that first, at least let us reduce our own emissions, is gone. Let alone that since we have contributed 80% to the emissions up to now, we have to pay 80% to change it. Or those people will come and swamp us. Yes, obviously they will, because they have no other alternative. What can we do? I'm very worried that the next step will be, shall we kill them? Or exterminate them somehow or another, war-wise or whatever-wise. Don't underestimate what can be done. Because that's what happens if they don't see any way out. And the people say, yeah, kill them, let us live properly. We don't care. So, when we listen to this kind of speeches, we must be aware and we must talk to our MPs and think that this is not acceptable. It's not factually based, it's just scaremongering. Or in English, again, we have this term, these are dog whistles, messages to people to go extreme and create all kinds of things. So, also climate change, as you know, for some countries, it is terminal. So countries like Maldives will disappear altogether if nothing is done, yeah? If there is an increase in the sea level, they will disappear. We will have a lot of our coastlines disappearing if sea levels increase, floods increase, and so on. So I think, I don't know, I mean, when we were young and we were going to madrasa, we were always being told that time will come when there will be floods and earthquakes and droughts all over the world, and that is the time when the 12th Imam will come to save us all. So I hope that is the solution, because otherwise we are looking at trouble. But I don't know. But this has never happened in this combination. Every day you read the news, somewhere or another there is a flood, drought, or earthquake, or whatever. And it's quite, look at Morocco, Libya, then Turkey before that, Pakistan, all over the place. America in a few places there, Canada, forest fires, huge forest fires, the whole country. Now, interestingly, when the forest fires happened in Canada, the Americans got very upset. They said, your smoke is coming down to us. It's obviously smoke is coming down to you. Don't you think about what your pollution is doing to other countries? This is a good example to you. What can happen if you don't take responsibility? So, unless we behave as if one community globally helping each other to change and address climate change, and that is what COP28 is about in Abu Dhabi. But they are saying that, this Abu Dhabi person who is in charge of COP28 is the president of ADNOC, Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. So he's the biggest oil producer. How can he talk about these things? But that's what it is. Or say, you should stop producing oil. Well, that's the only thing they have got. We should stop consuming as much, and then they will not be able to produce. They can't do anything. So there was a question thing introduced in COP27, I think, which was sharing of the burden. It was just there in the final communique, but no action has been taken on it. Sharing of the burden means that if you are producing, we call it the global ecological capital. So ecological capital of the whole globe. Who has consumed most of it? Obviously the West, industrialized West. So then they should now consume less, and they should pay for what they have consumed before, over-consumed. So we had this, this is even before all this discussion became very, very toxic. We were in the World Bank in Washington. And that time the question was chlorofluorocarbons. These are the gases which are used in refrigeration. And the emission of those gases, they deplete the ozone layer. And depleting the ozone layer brings ultraviolet radiation and cancers and all kinds of things. So at that time, the question was that China was newly industrializing. And therefore, it needed refrigeration in big numbers. Now, refrigeration is not only domestic. Refrigeration is also needed in the food chain, agricultural chain, whenever you want to transport fresh food, you need it to be refrigerated, especially in hot climates, otherwise it's gone. So China was increasing its refrigeration, and the Americans were saying, well, Chinese are going to create depleting the ozone layer. There were some funny asides to the ozone layer depletion. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on where you see it, the main impact was on people who were in the wrong places. By wrong places, I mean whites in Australia, whites in South Africa, New Zealand, and America. They're not supposed to be there. They have gone there as colonizers. They were getting cancers in big numbers. The dark-skinned people like us, Africans, not much impact. So we could say, okay, thank you very much. We don't care. What is going to happen to us, to them. Anyway, a suggestion was put to the Americans that if they reduce their air conditioning by 1 degree, that will be enough for the whole of China to have its refrigeration in the food supply chain. Okay? Americans said, no, we can't change our lifestyle for the Chinese. What's this nonsense? No, we can't. See, that is the attitude which needs to be overcome, and people need to understand that reducing your air conditioning by 1 degree is hardly going to make you a difference, really. But it may enable whole people in China to feed themselves. I'm talking 1980s. Same thing in India. If you have been to India, or even Africa now, where we come from, many of us, you can see that by the time the vegetables or fruit come to the market, the same day, fine, but day 2 or 3 is gone because there is no refrigeration. Or even before it reaches the market, it's gone because the trucks or whatever brings them are not refrigerated, right? So these things are very critical to even a basic level of living. And we need to take account of them and not waste. Okay, so what I'm saying is that behind this kind of rhetoric which our Home Secretary has put to the American Enterprise Institute, there are lots of hidden assumptions and problems and indicators which we need to think about. And as I said, the dangers could exceed to thinking about exterminating people. In fact, there were times when India, for example, during Indira Gandhi's time, they said we should limit the number of poor people. And therefore, they started sterilizing poor women. It's close to extermination, right? Here, you know, for example, now that the child benefit is only available to first 2 children. After 2, it's not available. Before it was. But it was during Thatcher's time, and Sir Keith Joseph, who who was her key advisor, one of it. She said, the wrong kind of people are reproducing. We should stop them reproducing. There is a whole science which is called eugenics. Eugenics refers to controlling and managing who is successful and who is removed from the chain. So all these new things will come if we go the wrong way. At the moment, I don't think so, because here, as we saw in my last lecture, we have an acute shortfall in the birth rate. And we are trying to encourage women to have more children, but no women want to have more children. So that's a different question, let alone tell them, don't have children. They say, thank you, we don't want children. It's fine, but we are in a problem. So let us summarize by saying that these are new trends emerging, which we need to make sure that we understand it, we advocate for it, and we lobby it. Now, this question of think tanks, as I said, the American Enterprise Institute or the Henry Jackson Institute here or the Institute of Economic Affairs, these think tanks are very right-wing, but they also provide both the policy documents and the people for the ministers and so on in the background. So they make the debate. And if we don't establish counter think tanks and policy documentation, then we're going to be losing. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much.
We have some time for questions, if there are any questions.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. One fear I've had for a while is the power of the right wing. Now, for us as Muslims with our values and so on, would there be, or would we start preparing for us to leave this country if the right wing is going to take, number one. Number two, when you said people will have to be, to control, they'll have to be killed. Now, was COVID one? It came to my mind when you said that. And finally, okay, I've forgotten what I had to say. But when I remember afterwards.
No, I mean, there are many people who say we should leave this country and go where?
But according to Hadith, we are told that if you go to Qum, there is a mosque.
Qum is starving from water at the moment. So forget that. All right?
Where our values can be maintained, or where we can...
You have to, there is no plan B. You have to do it here. Okay? There is no plan B.
So we are against the right wing, please.
Yeah, so, but we have other people, and we need to see what kind of alliances and what kind. It is a long fight, right? It's not a small fight. I mean, learn from the Jewish people. They were nearly exterminated by Hitler. But they fought back, and now they are reasonable. But they are still afraid, because this kind of things can hit them as well. Don't forget, it's not only us. As far as COVID is concerned, this kind of conspiracy theories, if they were designed to kill people they did not like, most of the people killed were themselves. All right? So I don't think that stacks up. This kind of things come. We have had plagues, we have had other epidemics before, smallpox, cholera. It's just that COVID is recent, and also as we become more and more urbanized and closely, gathered together in offices, in trains, in everywhere, it spreads. I don't think there is any conspiracy behind it. But to handle it, yes, globally, to distribute vaccinations, for example, we had 5 times what we needed, and we didn't give to countries which couldn't afford it. Same problem again. Who is causing it and who is suffering?
I remember if there's nobody.
Assalamu alaikum. I was just saying, it's a wonderful lecture you said. Like you said, yes, the discrimination, racism is going to increase. They want to obviously one day take vengeance on us because there's mosques being built everywhere and it's a threat to their English culture. And I'm saying a lot of people, from the lectures I've heard, there's so many Muslim people who are getting educated, doctors and that, right? Professionals, economists, you name it, bankers. Isn't it possible for us to set up a select committee or something and do something, you know, like not just saying, oh, we are going to help Iran, we are going to help here, and just say, yes, we will collect the funds and we will do something there. Because the British won't do it. All this 0.7, you're saying £15 billion, is gone down the drain. It will, because they refuse to help us. They want to torture us in each and every way. They want to keep us safe in the British land, but then they want to kill us back home. And I think it's very sad. Yes? And also another question, like you said, the 12th Imam. Why is everything happening, like the disasters happening to the Muslim world? You know, earthquake, Pakistan, the floods, Libya, Morocco, Tunisia. It's all within the Muslim people. You know, everything's hovered around Islam. And I don't understand the second part. I don't know how we can help our countries to lift them up. Because these Swell and Braverman and Rishi Sunak, they're not going to do much. They're not going to bend that much. That's out of the question.
Okay, so you see, the problem is this. Even if you rise high, depends on how you think. Rishi Sunak, Swell Braverman, Priti Patel, James Cleverly, they're part of us, non-white, but they are actually thinking worse than whites on these issues. This is a problem. Otherwise, a think tank or whatever we need to do is like-minded people. It doesn't matter whether they're black, white, or whatever, right? Like-minded. We need to figure and we need to interact with like-minded people and build, which we have not really started to think about, right? We can't think simple things that, if everybody immigrates to home, everything will be solved. It doesn't solve it. It only multiplies the problem. Okay? There's no plan B. You have to be here. You have to build yourself here and fight your corner. This is the important thing, right? Challenges will come. Obviously, challenges will come. We will be scapegoated, yes, but you can fight back. There are people who understand this.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Iqbal Asaria. I guess, personally, I think that there's a lack of political education within the Muslim community. And that's why we don't really understand this situation that actually is going to affect Muslims heavily in the coming years. And I was just wondering what you think the way forward is in terms of like how we actually build on this, like how we politically educate the Muslim community. So personally, I think organizations like MCB, etc., are very important, but people don't seem to think that they're necessarily that important to fund. So like in terms, if you look at their fund, they don't really get that much. Why? Why don't we see this as being really important, given that there's no plan B, we have to stay and fight, but we have no groundwork to do that at the minute. So what do you think the solution is there?
So two things, I mean, as our sister Masuma said, during COVID, we began to see also people we never thought they are senior doctors, senior this, senior that, who are Muslims or non-whites or whatever, all over the place. So we surprised ourselves that we didn't know we have reached so far, even without under the sort of radar, right? So now it's a question of mobilizing that. And you are right that this could be an ideal time to see that we need umbrella organizations like the MCB and others who can lobby, who can build think tanks, who can create policy papers to feed into it, right? And make reasonable, rational arguments. Yes, Muslims need to understand that this is a long battle. There's no plan B. You can't, there's nowhere to run away, let's put it this way. You might be, I mean, I welcome anybody who wants to have a plan B, go and test it in Tunisia and then come back and then stay put here, right? Because that's what is going to happen. But this is a long battle. And we need people who can think hard and long, patiently, empower other people, teach other people, and so on. It's not simple. And it's not going to happen tomorrow. But you can see change coming. For example, we have 1,500 plus mosques in this country, right? Most of them started off as old warehouses, churches, halls, not purpose-built at all, just mosque converted from something else. Over the last 10 years, especially let's look at people from Pakistan, right? People from Pakistan originally came, then they thought, we'll make some money, we'll send it home, we'll build somewhere and go back. Last 10 years, 15 years, we are seeing a change in attitude. They're saying, okay, we'll make some money, we'll send back to our relatives, but we will go there for a holiday, not permanently, okay? So you are here. Now you see the new mosques and centers coming up are completely different. They are purpose-built, they cater for more than prayers. Look at the East London Mosque, for example. So out of the 1,600, 250 are now purpose-built. And more are beginning to be purpose-built. This is just an outside view of how the psychology of the community is changing, right? In the sense that we need to put roots here. We need to build something which is a community. Now the next step will be how to interact with the rest of the community. So we can build bridges, alliances, political campaigning, and so on. So if you have listened, or you can go and listen to the talk of Mohamed Iqbal, I mean, okay, this is his experience and his reflection, but you can see that there are lots of things which are difficult to handle, which need very, very difficult choices to be made, but as a community we need to see how to get there.
One final question. Final question.
Thank you very much. I just had a question because you mentioned the CFCs, like the chlorofluorocarbons, which we don't use anymore, right? Because they're banned. So how can we get inspiration from the success of basically almost globally banning the CFCs to successfully compel our politicians to, invest in renewable energy in a more serious way? Because I would say they're quite similar kind of, issues. They both are affecting, the globally and everything. So what's your opinion on that, please?
2 or 3 observations on this, because I was involved quite in a detailed way with the World Bank NGO Committee on this, and the Kyoto protocols which resulted from there. The first thing is that the change in behavior or finance was small. It could be changed without too much cost, right? Even there was a big fight, because when the alternatives were discovered, they wanted to patent it and charge you 5 times to use it. So that was one of the problems. Because it was small, it could be handled. Now here, global warming is huge. Now, it actually involves, even there, as I said, even 1 degree reduction in air conditioning was not acceptable. Here you are looking at huge changes to lifestyle if you want to contribute properly to it, right? So yes, It has to be done. That is a good pathway, but it is not as easy to convince people to follow that pathway as CFCs.
Thank you very much. We will end there. If it's okay. Salat ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad. Thank you very much for that talk. Just a reminder that we have our regular programs every Friday. Go to sikkim.org.uk to find out more, and inshallah I'll see many of you tomorrow at the Salam Center Gala dinner.